Continue chapter reading of the report on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and U.S. Permanent House Select Committee, 28 pages. Title: Lack of Saudi Cooperation in Counterterrorism Investigations. Testimony and interviews, a number of FBI agents and CIA officers complained to the joint inquiry about a lack of Saudi cooperation in terrorism investigations both before and after the September 11 attacks. For example, a veteran New York's FBI agent stated that from his point of view, the Saudis have been useless and obstructionist for years. In this agent's opinion, Saudis will only act when it is in their self-interest. And by the way, that continues on today. That's a true statement. The Saudis, from their Minister of Defense to the Ministry of Affairs, they basically have told the press that they're willing to be open with the investigation when they have not. And now, with the Southern District of New York contemplating whether to release new information from the FBI regarding Saudi financing and logistical support to two of the hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Wafa Hazmi, who hijacked Flight 77 that crashed in the Pentagon. All of a sudden now they don't want this information being released. I wonder why. When a high-level officer was asked how the September 11 attacks might have been prevented, he cited greater Saudi cooperation, pointing to an example from the summer of 2001, when the U.S. government requested Saudi assistance with no success. In May 2001, the U.S. government became aware that an individual in Saudi Arabia was in contact with Abu Zubaydah and was most likely aware of an upcoming al-Qaeda operation. The U.S. government pressured the Saudi government to locate him. The Saudis informed the U.S. government that they required additional information to do so. The U.S. government agency that had originally learned of this individual's knowledge refused to provide the Saudis with additional information because it would reveal sources and methods. The National Security Council also tried to pressure the Saudis, but the Saudis would not cooperate with the additional information. According to some FBI personnel, this type of response is typical for the Saudis. For example, one FBI agent described one investigation after September 11th in which he provided the Saudi government with copies of the subject's Saudi passports. The Saudi government maintained that they had no record of the subjects. According to the former chief of Alex Station, the unit in the Director of Central Intelligence Counterterrorism Center established in 1996 to focus especially on Osama bin Laden, it was clear from about 1996 that the Saudi government would not cooperate with the United States on matters relating to Osama bin Laden. And the chief back then was Michael Scheuer. I've interviewed him, and one of the very few people who has ever interviewed him. In fact, I think I'm the only one to interview him regarding 9/11. And you can see that on the show Darkened Out. There was a May 1996 memo from the DCI's Counterterrorism Center stating that the Saudis had stopped providing background information or other assistance on bin Laden because bin Laden had too much information about official Saudi dealings with Islamic extremists in the 1980s for Riyadh to deliver him into U.S. hands. In a June 1997 memo to the DCI, Alex Station re-emphasized the lack of Saudi cooperation and stated that there was little prospect of future cooperation regarding bin Laden. The former chief of Alex Station thought that the U.S. government's hope of eventually obtaining Saudi cooperation was unrealistic because Saudi assistance to the United States government on this matter was contrary to Saudi national interests. This is redacted, testified on this issue on October 9, 2002. On the issue of al-Qaeda and Saudi intelligence, that goes back to our efforts to interact with the Saudis, to get them to help us investigating al-Qaeda. For the most part, it was a very troubling relationship where the Saudis were not providing us quickly or very vigorously with response to it. Sometimes they did. Many times they didn't. It was just very slow in coming. Both FBI and CIA personnel cited an individual named Madini al-Taib as a specific case in which the Saudis were uncooperative. The CIA and the FBI have been pressuring the Saudis for years for permission to talk to al-Taib. According to the former head of Alex Station, al-Taib managed all of bin Laden's finances when bin Laden was in the Sudan and any expense over $1,000 had to be approved by Al-Taib. Al-Taib moved to London in 1996 to work with Khalid al-Fawaz, another important al-Qaeda figure who has since been arrested. Um, Khalid al-Fawaz is a very important figure because he was the connection between Al-Qaeda's office in the United Kingdom to bin Laden in the Sudan and later in Afghanistan in 1996. He would deliver him the satellite phones. Those satellite phones were decrypted by the NSA, and that's how they learned of the number of the main Al Qaeda hub in Yemen, in which they tapped that line too. And God only knows what they heard on these lines and what they transcribed. It's not public. And I don't understand how nobody is asking for the transcripts. I might be doing that soon. In the summer of 1996, Al Taib returned to Saudi Arabia. The Saudis continuously refused the FBI's and the CIA's requests to talk to Al Taib, stating in the words of an FBI agent that Al Taib was just a poor man who lost his leg, doesn't know anything. The former chief of Al Station also cited the example of Mohammed Jamal Khalifa. This is bin Laden's brother-in-law and an important figure in Al Qaeda who had businesses in the Philippines. And some of that money had went to bin Laden in the Sudan and Afghanistan. The U.S. government arrested Khalifa in 1994. Khalifa had been sentenced to death in absentia by the Jordanian government for his role in a bombing in Jordan. As a result, the United States agreed to extradite him to Jordan. The Jordanians then returned him to Saudi Arabia. In the opinion of a CIA officer, the Saudis bought off the Jordanians for the return of Khalifa. According to the CIA officer, when Khalifa subsequently arrived in Saudi Arabia, he was met by at least one important government official. Khalifa now works for a Riyadh-based NGO and travels and operates freely. The General Counsel of the U.S. Treasury Department testified at the July 23, 2002 hearing about the lack of Saudi cooperation with the U.S. There is an almost intuitive sense, however, that things are not being volunteered. So I went to fully inform you about it, that we have to ask and we have to stack and we have to strive. I will give you 1.5 examples. The first is, after some period, the Saudis had agreed to the designation of a man named Juladin, who had notoriously involved in all of this, and his designation will be public within the next days. I'm wondering, this is Wael Juladin, who is one of the co-founders of Al-Qaeda and one of the co-founders of Al-Farouq in Brooklyn. They came forward to us 2 weeks ago and said, okay, we think we should go forward with this and the designation and a freeze order against Mr. Juladin. We asked, what do you have on him? Because they certainly know what we have on him. Because we shared it, we tried to convince them that they ought to join us. The answer back was nothing new. Mr. Doug Bereiter, do you believe that? Mr. Offhauser, no. I think that taxes credulity. Or there is another motive we are not being told. And that is the end of this chapter reading. It's important to note that there are nefarious individuals who are not public figures, who are being hidden, sort of, by the commission because of their connections. Well, not hidden by the commission because on orders of the State Department who have connections to the Saudi government. The commission didn't see everything. And it's an incomplete report rather than a false report. And look, this is a problem because we have new information, which we could demand a new investigation, actually. We have the Operation Encore. We have the Counterterrorism document. So, and now with the recent findings of Omar al-Bayoumi videotaping the Capitol, I mean, I think it's high time. And also, we need to pressure the United States to look into the Israeli art student ring and the movie front companies that were closely monitoring the FBI, the DEA, and living in close proximity to all the hijackers, all 19. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. See you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.